Thank you so much. It's lovely to be joining SARN today to share our learning about Ask the Family, which is one of my favourite projects to talk about. So this bit of work was commissioned by the Scottish Government earlier on this year on behalf of a national working group on whole family approaches and family inclusive practice. And the project was led by us at Scottish Families, but was carried out in partnership with three lovely third sector partners, Action for Children, Circle and All in the Family. And the national working group that I mentioned that I was a member of had been tasked with improving Scotland's support for families affected by alcohol and drugs. And that included children and young people and adult family members who were affected either by their own substance use, such as parents using substances or parents in recovery, or family members who were affected by somebody else's use. So as part of this, the group had drafted a set of national whole family approach and family inclusive practice principles. And we were asked to test these out with children and young people and adults who were already engaging with family support, either due to their own substance use, as I said, or somebody else's. So it's not exactly the most exciting engagement project ever to go off and engage around a whole lot of national principles. So we really had to be super creative in what we did. And 177 family members took part in this project earlier on in the year across a national survey, which I'll talk about in a minute, and an online conversation cafe, and a series of engagement activities, which I'll also come on to when I look at our virtual exhibition. So I'm going to be running through these findings today. So what I've got on the screen there, and you'll get the chance to see these slides after, and also they're in the full report, which we'll share with you as well. The national group had drafted this set of whole family approach and family inclusive practice principles, and my colleague Daryl sort of redesigned these into what's on the screen just now. And we wanted to test out these principles in two ways. First of all, we wanted to do some top-down testing out. So were the principles as written, supported by families? Did they chime with families? But also we wanted to do some bottom-up engagement. So were the ways that families talk about support and what matters to them reflected in the principles as written. So the first thing we did was we carried out a national survey. This was quite a quick survey. It just ran for 3 weeks online in January this year, and it was only open to people aged 16 plus who were affected by substance use, again, either their own or someone else's, and who were already engaging in family support. So it was quite a bespoke group of people. And you can see there from the slide on the screen that most of the respondents were family members who were affected by somebody else's substance use, 86%. But also we had a number of people who described themselves as previously affected by alcohol or drugs, or currently as well. And the 1% other was workforce. We were really pleased with the response rate, even though we ran this quite quickly and it was online. We got 135 responses from across Scotland. We got a really good geographical spread, with the exception of the 3 island health boards where we didn't reach anybody. Unfortunately, by the time we were doing the analysis and we picked this up, the survey had already closed. So we'll bear that in mind next time to be kind of checking as we go to make sure that we're reaching all parts of Scotland. And again, we were quite pleased with the age range who responded as well. And we know that most people who engage in family support are the older age group of 45 plus, but it was good to see around a third of respondents were under this age group as well. So getting into the kind of nuts and bolts of our findings, one of the first questions we asked was, what was the year in which you first became affected by substance use, whether it was your own or somebody else's? And then what was the year where you first reached family support? And we didn't say when did you reach the right family support or when did you reach good family support. It was just really any family support. And only 1 in 8 people, or 13%, said they reached support the same year they became affected. And of course, that could be like 11 months and quite a number of days. It just meant it was anything up to a year. The largest group of 36% was up to 5 years before they reached support, and a significant number were in excess of this. So at the time of the survey, people said they'd been affected by substance use for an average of 16 years, but it had taken 8 years before they'd reached support. And you can see there the longest time before reaching support was in fact 35 years. And we know from our own work at the Scottish Families Helpline and our local services, as well as the research carried out by our former colleague John Holleran, which was presented to SARN previously, the constantly just holding it up and together report, that we know that family members often only reach support at a time of crisis or emergency, or when they're at breaking point and they've really exhausted every other option available to them. We then said to people, well, who within your family do you think has been harmed by the substance use? And we gave them a whole range of different family categories. The one that we missed that people picked up in the other category was in-laws, that in fact we'd missed off our tick list. But only 1% of respondents said nobody was affected. And there were large numbers around kind of maybe more predictable family relationships, partners, parents, siblings, children, including adult children. But there were also some quite high responses around, family, around friends, that was 33%, and around about a fifth mentioned neighbours and work colleagues as being affected. So all of these are groups we would class as family, as Scottish families, because really we talk about anybody who's affected by someone else's alcohol or drug use. But it does just show how far-reaching the impact is. And then we said to people, well, now you've ticked all those categories, add up how many people that actually is. And, we often talk as Scottish families about the power of 5. So we say if you support an adult family member, as we routinely do, up to 5 people will benefit from that due to the kind of, everything being better for that family member and their wider family. But what we found in Ask the Family was it was much more than the power of 5, because on average, people identified 11 people harmed by each individual using substances, which just again shows the reach. And in fact, people identified up to 80 people harmed, as the slide shows. So as I'm sure you all know, the National Alcohol and Drug Strategy is called Rights, Respect and Recovery. And the little orange and white graphic top left is a little graphic that's in the strategy saying the whole family needs support. But we really wanted to explore that with family members and just say, well, what does that look like to you? What does it mean to you? And positively, in our view, most people said that the whole family needs support means that everyone in the family who needs it, including adults and children, should get a different kind of support depending on their need. So that was over 4/5 of people said that. And that is our definition of whole family support. It does not mean that everybody should get support at the same time in the same way, but that everybody in the family has their needs met. But there were also, a number of respondents, 16% said they felt people should get support at the same support at the same time. Only 1% said only adults should get support. Only 1% said only children should get support. And nobody, in fact, said only the person using substances should get support. But in fact, if we reflect on where investment goes in alcohol and drug support in Scotland, it largely is supporting individuals and not wider families. So I think that's worth noting. And I've just shared those few quotes with you as well, which I think just shed some light on these different views. So the first person isn't keen on what they see as jargon around whole families at all. The second person says, they do think everyone should get support, but in their case, it wouldn't really work to get support together because they don't think they could have an honest discussion. And then the last person says that, they really want to get support with their family member. The thought of receiving separate support actually causes them some anxiety. So again, that just shows the importance of choice. As I said at the start, we wanted to assess the views of the national principles in a top-down and a bottom-up way. So in terms of the top-down analysis, we represented the principles. We kind of pulled out some of the key themes and we presented them to the survey respondents and asked, how much they supported these. And they could tick as many as they wanted. So there's 12 statements there, and you can see that all of them get good levels of support from respondents. All of them are well over half, and a number well in excess of this. So that just showed that family members were really largely in support of the principles as drafted, which is very important. And in terms of the other category at the end, some of the things people mentioned were having named organisations, visibility, quick help, offering one-to-one support and outreach as well. We also wanted to assess the principles in a bottom-up way, as I said. And so we said to people, could you write down 3 words or phrases which describe how family support makes you feel? And what we ended up with there was 372 different words and phrases, which we then analysed and grouped into these 15 statements using their words. So these statements are made up of totally 100% the language that people used. We haven't added in any other terms or words into this. You can see, looking at these, a lot of parallels with the top-down statements, but also some really important differences. For example, people really talked about the importance of a safe space, of having backup, of happiness and of love, care and belonging, which are not necessarily words you would see in policy documents very often, but they're really, really important to families. So what we did for every part of this project was we looked at the principles as written, and we analysed, what was the same in terms of what families were saying as the principles and what was different. And this table here was for the national survey, but we did this for all of the different engagement activities that we carried out. And we found that families were really clear about what matters to them and how good support looks and feels. And there was really strong consensus, so that was helpful. As I said at the start, we did the national survey in a conversation cafe and a number of different engagement activities, and we really needed people to be very creative about this. And because we are the third sector, we're actually quite good at that. So we were able to pull together, with all the results of this, a virtual exhibition, which we launched in June. And this is on our website at the link that you see there on the screen. And I'm not going to have time to run through all of it today, so I'd really encourage you to take some time afterwards and have a little look through everything we got, from poems to letters to little animations and so on. And I'm just going to show you a few of the things we got now. So this family member produced a family word cloud, which was bringing together all of the words and terms that they felt represented family support to them and their relationship with their worker. And one of the things I really remember this person talking about was, you can see there in the male figure, the word mate around the torso. And they really liked the way the worker was like, all right, mate, and just had that kind of instant connection with them. And also they talked about being brave and blunt, and they didn't really want to be mollycoddled or wrapped in cotton wool because they had to face some quite hard realities. This young person wrote a letter about what their support worker should be. And they talked about the fact that their parents got support, and they got support actually from the same worker, but at different times. And they could really see the benefit for their parents as well about getting support, and really that benefited the whole family. And I'm just going to play you this little clip, which was from our Roots Young Persons project. And of course, because they're the youths, they chose to do a TikTok. So I'll just play this now.
Hi, my name's Amy. My mum abuses drugs, and I just feel really alone and rejected, like I have no one to talk to. That's when I met Claire from Scottish Families, and I feel like I have someone to talk to who understands what I'm going through. I can tell her anything and she still won't judge me. That's when she told me there's other young people that I can work with that go through the same as me. That's when I met Ashley and Chloe, and I finally felt like I have friends and someone to talk to who understand me and go through the same stuff as me. Thanks to them, I've learned it's good to talk.
And the TikTok was filmed at kind of peak lockdown. I remember the worker talking about how hard it was to keep all the young people distance because they were so excited to see each other in the flesh again. And this was a poem to our new family support worker, which was actually presented to us as a text, a written poem, but my colleague Rebecca Bradley converted it into little animation with some music and beautiful images as well. that's so uplifting, that animation, and there's so much in it actually to kind of analyse and draw it. But the bit that always sticks with me is the proverbial shove that they ask for, you know, and just really, again, like taking families out of their comfort zone and supporting them to move forward. So in terms of our conclusions and recommendations from our Ask the Family project, we did find that family members generally did use quite different terminology than policymakers and practitioners. And we need to make sure that what we're producing at a national level really does reflect the language that families use, and more family-friendly language. But they were in general supportive of the draft principles, although they might describe things in a different way. But families also identified a number of really important additional whole family principles. For example, showing their human side, challenging them, as I said there, and being invested in helping, as somebody said, offering a safe space and trust and freedom from stigma and judgment. That came out so strongly throughout, and working holistically across the whole family. They also talked about workers' stickability and holding on and never giving up. So we definitely focused more on family support and whole family aspects than family inclusive practice aspects. But, you know, this did also come out, you know, that people had very difficult experiences in terms of being excluded rather than included in their loved ones' care and treatment. And we mustn't lose that as well. So what we did presenting back to the national group was we identified from the existing principles the things that families really supported, and we kind of presented that back to them as shown here. But also we said, well, look, there's all of these additional principles as well that were really important to family members. So in terms of the existing ones, you know, as I said, things that came out strongly were stigma and judgment, support in their own right, support being strengths-based, accessible, available, and stickability and trust. But in terms of the additional principles, they felt that, you know, support from peers as well was important, not necessarily as volunteers and as workers, but actually just getting to know other family members in the same situation. Family inclusive practice came out strongly. Choice, support which leads to change, which is really, really important. It's not just having a cup of tea and a chat, but actually about, you know, evidence-based interventions that result in change for families. People also talked about the importance of fun and having a laugh and having fun times as a family. And friendship and humanity as well, which again is not something we see in a lot of policy documents, but so important for families. And so what we finally concluded was it's not just about services around alcohol and drugs, but actually all services who come across families affected by substance use should be following these principles. And, you know, we got really good evidence of fantastic family support across Scotland, but families were clear it had taken them a long time to get to support, and there just wasn't enough of it to go around. And although this wasn't about investment as a project, you know, it was hard to avoid this issue around lack of funding for family support services. So when we launched Ask the Family in June this year, we used that as a platform to call for significant and sustained and strategic investment in family support. And we just felt it was a really important time to do this, and it was a great opportunity to do this now, and with so much additional funding available for drugs policy investment. We need to improve the reach and visibility and speed of response, and also not forget about the value of other family members and that sort of peer support. And I'm just going to leave you with that quote from a family member, which was really just about the harsh reality of living with substance use in the family and how life-changing and transformational good family support can be. So thank you.